All right, guys, happy Monday. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I sure did. Barely have a voice again, and that's because I went to the UFC fight in Miami. What an amazing card. Honestly, it was fantastic. I love MMA. Honestly, it's the only sport that I love. I also happened to bump into this guy while I was there. Do you guys recognize him? Yep, that is former President of the United States, Donald Trump. Yeah, talk about that. I'll tell you what kind of a mood he was in. Also, later on in the show, we are going to very briefly discuss the Oscars, because what did you miss? You guessed it, nudity. Of course, there has to be nudity at every event. You just have to see skin, or else the celebrities will all perish. But first, the biggest political scandal ever. And no, I am not being dramatic. If what is happening right now in France is real, and I can tell you right now, I firmly believe that it is, then barring political assassinations, this is potentially the biggest political scandal that has ever happened in the history of the world. I mean, it's so important that I'm not just going to ask you guys to watch this, but to also share it. It's another potential blackmail ring. All that and more today coming up on Candace Owens. This is crazy. I'm talking crazy, 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 crazy. Stop everything. Pay attention. If you're driving, pull over. Just kidding. You don't have to pull over. You can keep driving. But you just prepare yourself for what is happening right now in France. So let me give you guys the background. Emmanuel Macron is the president of France. He is married to Brigitte Macron. Okay? Their love story has always been extremely weird and extremely creepy. She is 70 years old, allegedly, and he is just 46 years old. So already right there, you have a 24-year age gap between them. And at the very least, just looking into their love story, you're looking at what might be, because they change the age throughout the years, a story of pedophilia. I'll tell you what their official narrative has been. The official narrative is that when Emmanuel was just 15 years old, he was a drama student at a school. And his teacher was Brigitte. And while he was very young, they somehow managed to fall in love. That would have made Brigitte way too old to be falling in love with a 15 or 16 or 14-year-old, depending on which article you're reading. But yes, apparently she was just so moved from his depth, this little boy's depth and the poetry and the way that he would write, that they fell in love, so much so that the now First Lady left her then husband, despite the fact that they had 3 kids. Okay, so that's the background story. Nobody cares. Doesn't matter. It happened so long ago. Now she's the First Lady. We should celebrate her. No, some major update now happening. Major update. So let me tell you about how I happened upon this story. There was just an article that was published in the Daily Mail. Here is the headline. The proof France's First Lady wasn't born a man. What? I was going, what? So I, of course, instantly read it, because what a bizarre thing that you're even needing to present proof that Brigitte Macron was not born a man. And embedded within the article, they showed 2 photos, and I'm going to show you right now. This is the first photo. This is allegedly Brigitte Macron when she was a little girl sitting on her mom's lap. But when I saw this photo, the first thing I noticed was that the person on the far left, the boy, that actually looks like Brigitte Macron. I'm taking you guys through my thought process. I saw this photo. I was like, that actually looks like she might actually be the guy. Maybe she's a dead ringer for her brother, but I don't see any resemblance there with the little girl. And they showed the second photo, debunking another young photo, allegedly, of Brigitte Macron. But I thought when I looked at this photo that this looks way too new to be a photo of a 70-year-old when they were a child. Now, again, these are my thought processes. When I then read the article, there was no debunking whatsoever. They just were calling people that were saying otherwise far right, all the typical buzzwords, far right, conspiracy theorists, racist, sexist, it's homophobic, it's anti-Semitism. Just the thing that we are all now able to immediately look through. These names don't mean anything anymore. And that just makes me want to look further into the alleged theory. And I did. And holy smokes. So the quote unquote conspiracy theory is actually a 3-year thorough investigation that was conducted by journalists that were working with genealogists. It was published in 6 issues in Faits et Documents. I'm sorry, my French is not that good, but they published 6 issues unpacking what they had discovered after a 3-year investigation. And here is what they are saying, right? So again, I'm going to say allegedly, but this is what they have published. Their theory is that the First Lady, Brigitte Macron, was actually born Jean-Michel. So Bridget is actually John Michael. John Michael lived as a man for 30 years, fathered 5 children, okay, and then transitioned at the age of 30 to become Brigitte. Okay, now I'm just going to show you this before and after photo, just right here. They actually used, as a part of their investigation, Chinese software. And this is a side-by-side. It is such a dead ringer. It's crazy to me that you would not say that these two individuals look alike. This is potentially the same individual age. So on the left, what I'm showing you is John Michael. On the right is a photo of the First Lady, okay? Now, I will tell you why this has legs and why I'm going to encourage you to read the very long document that I read, which we will include in the link in bio. The first obvious reason that I am very much believing what they have published is because the First Lady is simply unable to produce any photos of herself throughout the first 30 years of her life. Guys, how easy to debunk this. If you say, Candace, no, actually, you lived as a man for 30 years. I lived for 30 years. I'm going to show you every photo of every year that I've lived. Here's me in college, right? Here's me while I was pregnant with my children. Here's me and my husband on our wedding day. There would be so many photos that Brigitte should have at her disposal if this is false. But they won't produce any. Nope, they're just calling everybody wrong and backwards and transphobic. Just produce the photos. Instead, the only photos they have produced that are circulating in the media are the photos that I just showed you. And as I said, the first photo, she looks more like the John Michael, who she claims is actually her brother, who she won't just present to the public. If that is in fact your brother, please just go on a walk with him so we can capture it and say, no, she just happens to look like her brother. Here's John Michael. No, John Michael has disappeared. The genealogist just can't find a single trace of John Michael since Brigitte came into the public space at the age of 30. So John Michael existed for 30 years, according to the genealogist, okay? And then John Michael stops existing and Brigitte exists. But Brigitte doesn't exist for the first 30 years, okay? The second photo, the one that I said to you looked a little too recent for an alleged 70-year-old, well, yeah, they were able to debunk that. That's actually a photo of her daughter, her daughter Trifane. You can see now side by side. Of course, that is her daughter. It's a dead ringer for her daughter. So why would you colorize a photo and make it black and white and try to pass it as yourself when it is in fact your daughter? Now, I'm sure somebody will say, well, didn't come directly from the First Lady. It is very obvious that they are trying to dissuade the narrative by producing these two photos, which are easily debunked. Here's a second reason that I would say major red flags. Rather than just producing what should be ample evidence of your existence for the first 30 years of your life, they're suing. Yes, the First Lady actually sued 2 of the journalists that were involved in producing the story. Brigitte Macron, here's a headline from the Telegraph, Brigitte Macron sues women who claimed that she is transgendered. Well, something to note is what exactly Brigitte is suing for. She's suing them for violation of privacy and fundamental personal rights, plus illicit use of her image. But what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Like, why don't you say you completely lied and I can prove it and I'm going to ruin your entire lives, which you would just have to show, again, pictures of your first 30 years of life. But no, this is really just a tactic to pretend as if these journalists didn't produce concrete proof to substantiate their claims. Now, the 2 journalists being sued, by the way, are Amandine Roy and Natasha Ray, and they were eventually punished with symbolic fines for, I guess, invading the privacy of the First Lady. It's going to get even crazier, though, because journalists that worked on this case were also threatened. They sent the police to threaten them while they were conducting research. Natasha Ray, the woman that was punished with a symbolic fine, as she was conducting research, she reached out to somebody to ask some questions about the First Lady's upbringing, the first 30 years of the First Lady's life. And then what happened as she was examining these inconsistencies in the story was the police burst into her home on July 13th, 2021. They then took her into custody without being summoned on the pretext of a complaint that was filed by one of the individuals that she had reached out to, Catherine Audoy. She was then released after 5 hours of tough interrogation with a lesson. And you shouldn't be doing this. They tried to humiliate her. They tried to threaten her. And of course, this only made the public even more interested in the story. She was also asked to produce a list of journalists with whom she had been in contact with. The police also seized her phone. That is not normal. None of this should be happening in a story that, again, would be so easy to debunk. They similarly arrested a man named Eric Verhey, another journalist working on the story. Similarly, had no charges. They just wanted to question him. I don't know, guys. You tell me, what are you thinking? If you're alleging that somebody was a man for the first 30 years of their life, why go through these efforts when you could just show photos? But of course, obviously, to tell a lie this big, you'd have to have a very good memory. This is actually something that Judge Judy used to say. I used to love watching Judge Judy when I was young with my grandma. And she used to say, if you don't lie, you don't have to have a good memory. But if you lie, you got to have a very good memory. And what keeps happening throughout the years of her being the First Lady, so since 2017, every time the First Lady tells a story about herself in her childhood, the math doesn't quite math, right? For example, she recalled living alone in the United States during Neil Armstrong's moon landing in 1969. The only problem is that she would have been just 16 years old. What? 16-year-old living alone in the United States? But if the theory is true, that she's actually Jean-Michel, who is 8 years older, which would make the First Lady 78 years old today, then that story would make perfect sense. Because, of course, you could live alone when you are 24 years old in the United States. Again, there are multiple examples of the First Lady just being too young in terms of the past stories that she keeps telling. Then there is the remarkably strange case of Brigitte's alleged ex-husband. So just to remind you, jog your memory, the story goes, she was married, right? And at the age of 40 years old, she fell in love, so much so that she left her husband because she just loved this 16-year-old or 15-year-old or 14-year-old drama student so much. She left her husband and her 3 kids to be with him, okay? So it should be pretty easy to find her ex-husband that she had 3 kids with. But it turns out that they can't find that man. Yeah, back when Emmanuel Macron was elected president, journalists all over the world, international journalists, were obviously prying into his background and her background, and they just could not find this man. Allegedly, his name is André Louis Auxier, and internationally, they just couldn't locate him. Allegedly, he is a banker, or was a banker, because now they say he died, just suddenly died. But he was allegedly a banker, so it's very weird that there wouldn't be a trail for journalists to find him. In 2017, during the presidential election, they tried to interview him, and it was all of their attempts in vain. In fact, in an article that was published in French magazine, Gala magazine, they titled the article, "As if he had never existed." So that is in the year that he became president. They were just like, this other guy doesn't really seem to exist. It also seems to be the case that every time the press is trying to assist the narrative that he did exist, they keep accidentally showing photos of other men. For example, in 2018, France 3 TV produced a movie entitled Brigitte Macron, un roman français. And they showed this photo very quickly, featuring Brigitte and her first husband, André Louis Auxier. But it turns out that upon inspection, that actually isn't him. It's actually an old faculty photo because it has been confirmed that Brigitte was a teacher. Obviously, that's how she fell in love with the young student Emmanuel. And here is the full photo of the faculty. Oopsies, we got it wrong again. Guys, when I tell you that there is so much proof to this claim, I'm not a person that just pushes out these narratives, right? I'm not a person that's like, come with me and we're going to examine QAnon or Pizzagate. I am telling you that this has legs. And you know it has legs because the press is doing their usual bit of trying to dismiss it as a far-right conspiracy theory that is being pushed by people who are backwards and racist and homophobes and transphobes. No, you're not going to do that. You're not going to gaslight us anymore. It is very simple to debunk this. It is so simple to debunk this. There should be so much evidence. In fact, if this was me and someone lied about the first 30 years of my life, I would do a press conference. I would have my brother there. I'd be like, here's my brother, John Michael. Yes, we do look alike, okay? But you guys are crazy. And then I would have college friends there. I have tons of photos of me growing up, my entire family. And then I would say it is harmful to produce conspiracy theories. Now that we have debunked this, let's talk about the harm of conspiracy theories. But they're not doing any of that. Instead, they're just scrambling. Why is this story really important? Why am I asking you to share it? Well, because, like I said, we should have known about this. It's been going on since 2017, but also because what they are saying is that the reason the press is covering this, right, the state media is covering this, is because what's really happening here is two individuals were selected to be the leaders of a nation. They were selected on the principle of blackmail, is what they are saying. They are saying that they selected these two individuals because they can control them, because they created the wife, right? Because they know the history here. And they can basically say, here is what you're going to do, Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte. You are going to pass through these policies. And there's nothing that you can do to stop whatever it is that we want to accomplish because we control you. Again, we made you. So again, all across the nation in France, they're even having protests. They're wearing wigs that resemble the wig that Brigitte wears and demanding the truth about this situation. And if this is proven to be fact, and again, I'm going to link this, you should read it. It's like 16 chapters. It took me 2 days to read through all of it, and my jaw was on the floor. But if it is proven true, then what we are unpacking here is exactly what we are unpacking in America, that blackmail is what rules the world. And that's all I have to say about that. If you're like most Americans, you're struggling to make ends meet. Everything is more expensive these days. By the time you pay the bills, fill up your car, and go to the grocery store, there's almost nothing left. You're laying out your credit card for all non-essentials or maybe even some essentials. Last I checked, the average credit card interest rate for Americans is sitting at 24%. That is insane. How are you supposed to dig yourself out of all that debt? If you own a home, I want you to call my friends at American Financing right now. Interest rates have finally dropped into the fives, which is the lowest that they've been in a long time. Call American Financing to talk about their refinance options. They save their customers on average $854 a month by tapping into their home equity and wiping out high-interest credit card debt. Think about it. $854 a month is like a $10,000 raise. What a relief that could be for you and your family. Don't wait to take control of your finances. These rates might not last long, so act today. Call American Financing at 800-795-1210. And if you call today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment. That's 800-795-1210 or visit AmericanFinancing.net.
NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 start at 6.799% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 800-795-1210 for details about credit costs and terms.
Okay, now it's time for some topics du jour. Before we get into our first topic, you guys, we are dangerously close to 3 million. So let's just get me there. UFC fight last night, man, oh man, best fight that I've been to. You guys know I'm a UFC stan, as the kids are saying. I still don't really know what that means. But yes, I love the UFC for a lot of reasons. On the show, we show you that the fighters are just authentic people. They just say what they think. It's none of the BS politics. Dana White is running it phenomenally. I absolutely love Dana White, who similarly defends free speech rights. They're not painting the ground with BLM or anything. They just allow people to think whatever it is that they want to think without corporatizing those ideas. So last night it was Sean O'Malley. He won. He is just weird. This dude fights like a spider monkey. He's incredible. He comes out and he looks like cotton candy. And I've seen him fight multiple times, and I am just amazed because when you look at him, he's so thin. You're like, how is he going to win? He does it every single time. By the way, I'm saying last night because I'm so tired. The fight didn't end until 3:30 a.m., but it was technically, I guess, Saturday night is when it began. Lots of people were there. Ivanka, Jared were there. It was great to catch up with them. But of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Donald J. Trump was there. Here's a photo of me with Patrick Bet-David. I did his show. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, as well as Vinny from that same show, and Trump looking fantastic. He looks fantastic. That's all I can say. He's got tons of energy. In fact, before he came out, I was talking with Dana, and he was saying how Trump was calling him. Called me at 1, I'm paraphrasing here. He called me at 3 a.m. He called me at 6. This guy does not sleep. He is just constantly on the go. And Dana was just amazed that he was going to make it to the fight. He is working nonstop. I briefly just caught up with him because I haven't seen him in a while. Obviously, been very busy just having children. And yeah, the comparison between him and Biden, it's not even close. And my theory on why Trump has the mental faculties that he has about him is because he's never drank alcohol in his entire life. It's a story he doesn't really talk about. I don't think he's ever talked about it. But his older brother died with alcohol addiction because of his alcohol addiction. And because of that, during his last years of life, he asked Trump to never drink. Just like, it ruined my life, don't drink. And Trump just didn't his whole life because he lost his brother. He never has touched a glass of alcohol. And as we know, alcohol does, of course, impact your brain. And that is the reason, my scientific theory, of why Trump's is not impacted at all. He's got a lot of years left on him. I will tell you guys that. But again, just talking about why I love MMA and the lack of politicizing anything, it really speaks to why I have grown so bored of sports that I used to love, like basketball, painting the ground, BLM. Everyone has to use it as a moment to promote whatever the thing is, whatever the media says the thing is. So it's not BLM anymore. So the basketball players have moved on. And I'm just sick of the narratives. It's why I don't watch any of these events, the Golden Globes, the Oscars, the Grammys. I make somebody else watch it and tell me if there was anything that I needed to see. And of course, last night, it was, in fact, the Oscars. And you know what to expect. Like I said, I didn't watch it, but I knew that there was going to be nudity. I knew that the celebrities just can't get through an event without promoting nudity and or transgenderism, both if it's a really good night. And so I was not at all surprised to learn that John Cena, the wrestler, decided to do a joke, supposed to be funny, and appear naked as he was presenting the Oscar for Best Costume Design. Here is a clip of that in case you missed it. It's just incredible to me how funny they find that. Like, they just think it's absolutely hilarious. And listen, I don't have any ill will towards John Cena. I just have ill will towards this needing to be necessary when you are presenting. But I don't understand it. None of it makes any sense to me. And what I perceive this to be is just kind of Hollywood constantly trying to establish trends. And part of what they do is they have made us not sensitive to looking at nudity, right? It's the desensitization, is the effort that Hollywood is constantly making. We talked about that last week in terms of transgenderism really being sold by Hollywood as something that was normal through all of these acts that look to me to be humiliation rituals, right? As just one example, here's a photo of Kid Cudi at the CFDA Awards. Now, this is an older photo, but I'm just showing it to you. It's from 2021, just to illustrate my point, which is that when they're trying to send down a narrative, they try to make it popular by having artists engage in, again, what I would term to be humiliation rituals, right? We own the artists, we own the narrative, we will tell your children what is cool, we will establish what is cool and what is fine, and there is this permeation of nudity, this permeation of transgenderism that Hollywood just cannot seem to let go of. So I was not enthused. I do not find it funny that he appeared naked. Some people say, oh, he's just promoting a movie. You know, he's going to be in a movie that is coming out soon. Have we become so desensitized to nudity that we think that you can't promote without nudity? Is that really what we're doing? We're going to say that, John Cena he has to promote the fact that he is in a movie, and the only way for him to do that is without clothes on. And that's funny. It's not funny. Just tell me what movie you're in, bro. It will have the same effect if you're wearing a t-shirt and some shorts. I will still be like, oh, that's really cool. You have a movie that's coming up. It sounds interesting. Maybe I'll check it out. No one likes to talk about life insurance, but it's incredibly important and you need to include it in your financial planning this year. Start shopping now with Policy Genius. Find the right policy to protect your family today and give yourself the peace of mind that comes with knowing that if something were to happen to you, your family can cover all of their expenses while getting back on their feet. Policy Genius's technology makes comparing life insurance quotes from America's top insurers easy in just a few clicks. You already have a life insurance policy through work, but that might not offer enough protection for your family's needs. And it may not follow you if you leave your job. So you have to have a backup plan. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval, and they avoid unnecessary medical exams as well. Policy Genius has licensed agents who can help you find the best fit for your needs. When they make it this easy, there is no excuse not to do it. Policy Genius works for you, not the insurance companies. That means that they are not incentivized to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Save time, money, and provide your family with a financial safety net using Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/Candace or click the link in our description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Candace. But moving on, because as I said, I did not watch the Oscars because I am not interested in the current thing. What I did do was I sat down with Chris Cuomo. So this was heavily promoted. I was very excited about it. Chris Cuomo, formerly of CNN, he eventually left CNN. Things got very tricky for him when his brother, the then governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, got Me Too'd, as I would say. People were coming out saying that he was sexually harassing him. And there were a lot of changes happening at CNN. He eventually left. And what tends to happen after you leave CNN or MSNBC is people become a lot more rational, right? So my perspective, and we talked about this on stage, is that Chris Cuomo was being a larger part, existed pretty much as a larger part of a chorus of leftism, right? And if the network says this is what we're selling, then if you are a journalist on that network, you must sell it. He was much more normal in person. By the way, I want to say, he's also a lot taller in person. He is very tall. That was the first thing I noticed. I said, you're very tall, Chris. I actually thought you were much shorter. I know that everyone thinks that we're shorter on TV screens, but he's very tall. I would put him at about 6'3", which I think is quite shocking. Anyways, we sat down, and Chris could not help being Chris. I want to give him credit for showing up and sitting down next to me, which most people would not even do if they were on the left. But we got to the topic of Vladimir Putin, and I'm the person that brought him up because what we were doing was breaking down the State of the Union, and we were saying, how do you think Americans took this? How will Americans respond to the State of the Union address? And the point that I was making was that, listen, the American people have now just watched Vladimir Putin unpack the history of Russia from the 8th century. So we are very aware of the fact that our alleged leader is not the person that's in charge. He can barely remember what he ate for breakfast. And Chris Cuomo did not like this. He kind of hit the button. Putin bad, Orange Man bad, Putin, Orange Man always bad. Take a listen. You also have to recognize that Tucker just went over and interviewed Vladimir Putin. And this is significant because then you saw what it looks like when somebody not only has the mental faculty, irrespective of what you thought about the interview, you cannot, you are forced to acknowledge that he's an incredibly smart person. He started in the 8th century. Forget, I don't even think Tucker thought he was being trolled, right? It's just, in 8th century, and he's going through the entire history of Russia, starting from the 8th century, right? And truly, Biden couldn't have started from yesterday at 8 p.m. and recounted what he had done. So there's also this contrast that's playing out.
But it's a very good point you're making, because as a leader of a nation, you want somebody to be able to impose themselves. He gave a clinic and taught the world Russian history.
Right.
If you really think about it. Hey, this is what we're all about. I know I gave you 2 hours. I'm going to teach the world why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is the reason, right? And you can love him, you can hate him. You cannot criticize him for his agenda that he came in to do. And we did not see that yesterday.
Correct.
And by the way, how about yourself? What did you think about it?
I think that it is not good that you're using Vladimir Putin as some type of positive attribute metaphor for a leader.
That's not.
okay?
That's not what I did at all.
Well,
just was saying that people
you're
have
saying,
just
well, he's
seen-
smart.
He
He's
is smart. So why would you not acknowledge someone smart? What does that do? Does that make me a Putin supporter? Because you're clearly smart.
No,
if you
but-
can sit down and unpack Russian history
All right, but
from
what's
the
the
8th
point?
century, what do you mean? What the point?
What's
The
the
point is
point?
to say that the entire world can now see this contrast of a man who can't remember what happened 2 hours ago, who still thinks that his son is alive, sadly, and often brings up his son as if he's
That's
still
not
alive.
true.
What do you mean that's not?
You,
What is
you
not
don't
true?
need. See, look.
What is not true, Chris? Actually say
He does
what is not true.
think. You're really going to say that Joe Biden believes that his son Beau is alive?
He has done that on camera. He has said
He has misspoken as an old man that is talking about
that's
something
the
that
problem.
hurts him.
Listen to you. No, because
Listen,
Chris.
listen, again.
There's no reason to do. There's no reason
Look.
to do this. You're doing so great. I'm not going to let you do this to yourself. Like
Listen.
what? No, seriously. There's no reason to do it. There's no reason to do it. Obviously, Vladimir Putin is intelligent. There's no reason, doesn't make you anything to acknowledge the fact that any person that can for an hour straight unpack the history of their country starting from the 8th century
Right.
has their mental faculties about them.
Okay.
That is the only
Here's
thing
the
that I have
thing.
made, and I said that
Here's the
contrast
thing.
is
First-
now playing out in the American people's mind of, wow,
Yes.
okay, I don't care what I think about Vladimir Putin or Russia, right? But the fact that they have a leader who can speak in this manner,
Okay.
right? Who is able to remember these things and to communicate in this manner makes us aware of how much we are not getting out of our own leaders. That is a very valid point.
Okay, I get it. I hear you. And I completely disagree, okay? Because again, picking a metric of what's the guy's IQ is not enough for me. First of all, he did not give you. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because it's what do you do with your intelligence? You think he gave you an accurate recitation of Russian history starting in the 8th century because Candace just said so. She's wrong and you're wrong, okay? He did not give you an accurate recitation. He gave you a KGB doctored look at why it's okay that he wants to reestablish the Soviet Union. That's what he gave.
Oh, stop
And
it.
Listen,
Stop
I'm not here
it.
to play Russia good, Russia bad, okay?
Russia has a
If-
smaller GDP than California. He's
So
not,
what? So what? They're
you're-
also
you're
invading a
relying
country
on
right now
belief
just for
that
avarice.
Americans are economically
Look,
so
what
unintelligible that they are going to believe
What I'm
that
saying
the threat
is-
that we are facing today is Russia trying to reestablish. So this is like Cold War propaganda. We gotta move on from that, okay?
But it's just as real
this
now
this
as it
isn't
was
the
then.
1960s.
And remember, in America, these people are allowed to be here right now doing things they could never do in Russia. Never. Nobody can speak out against Putin. He is at over 75% in popularity polls because people know what happens if you answer differently. They make no money. They have no press freedoms. When they try to exercise themselves, even on the internet,
Starting to
they
sound
get
like
chased.
America today, because January
Well,
6ers
and-
are locked
and that
up
is-
for
and that
wrong
is
think.
something
You
to-
locked up grandmas for expressing
That
their
is something to be
opinions.
concerned about.
You are saying
That is
if
something
you
to be
speak-
concerned about.
That is correct.
Not
Freedom
admired,
of press. You're
but
sitting
used
here.
as a point
they
of
wanted
fear.
to arrest Tucker Carlson for going over to speak to a leader of a country that we are allegedly not at
Listen,
war with.
listen.
So you're also describing America while you are
I am
telling us.
not describing America.
Yeah,
I'm describing what America should not be. So be careful about putting up a model of what you think has some value.
Nobody said there
That's
was a
what I'm
model.
saying.
We just said that it's
That's what
very
I'm saying.
obvious that Putin can complete a sentence and that Biden can't.
Yeah,
and
he
I'm
can
not,
complete a sentence. He can also
weird
likely
Cold War
murder his
vibe.
opponents. And that's a function of his intelligence also, because it's not guided by any sense of morality. And that matters too. And Tucker making the decision.
Gonzalo Lira was just killed by Zelensky. He's a thug. We shouldn't be supporting
Listen,
Ukraine at all, not a
Look,
single dollar.
Even if that were true, which neither of us know whether it is, then that's a policy argument. Have the policy argument. The idea of good and evil, right and wrong, cheapens it. It cheapens it.
But you just did that.
I'm not doing it. I'm doing the opposite. I'm not triggered. What are you, 19? We're using 19-year-old woke language now that I'm triggered?
Okay,
I'm not triggered. I got my legs crossed. It means I'm comfortable.
Okay, well, you just seemed a little triggered.
I don't like setting up Putin as a model.
I didn't. Nobody here. Everyone is listening to what I said, and I'm gonna not just double down. I'm gonna triple down, quadruple down on the fact that it's very obvious to the American people that our leaders are extremely lackluster, and that has been made even more abundantly clear after having watched Tucker Carlson sit across from Vladimir Putin, which was heroic on his part, because we are tired of being propagandized. We are tired of people pretending, if you live in Russia, there's going to be so much propaganda. There's so much propaganda here.
I agree.
Okay, we are suffering from the exact same things that you accuse Vladimir Putin of doing.
I agree.
Locking up people's opponents, right?
I agree. I don't agree with locking up their opponents.
FBI agents showing up on American people's doorsteps because they attended a rally on January 6th. 3 of my friends had FBI agents. They didn't even step foot in the Capitol, okay? Had FBI agents show up because they wanted any person that even showed up to hear Trump speak on January 6th to feel threatened by that, because the establishment said that you weren't allowed to support Donald Trump. So there you have it, okay? What I will say is I, again, am very grateful that Chris Cuomo sat down and was willing to have this discussion, which never happens, and which I believe that the American people deserve, that we shouldn't all just stay in our cages, so to speak, and only speak amongst people that agree with us. But you can see that instinct, right? That's why I say it's like a triggering. There's such an instinct there to not even allow us to have conversations about certain characters around the world. And I would double, triple, quadruple down on the idea that what they describe happening in Russia is now very much what is happening here in America. And it's the reason that I have a platform, because I'm willing to stand up and say, stop telling us to be afraid of Vladimir Putin and not afraid of our own government agencies who have been overstepping for a very long time. Grand Canyon University is a private Christian university that is located in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. GCU believes that our Creator has endowed us with certain inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They believe in equal opportunities and that the American dream starts with purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote human flourishing, creating a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. So whether you're pursuing a bachelor's, master's, or a doctoral degree, Grand Canyon University's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your degree. GCU has over 330 academic programs as of September 2023. GCU will meet you where you are and provide a path to help you fulfill your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. So find your purpose today at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. That's gcu.edu. All right, guys, before we go, I'm going to read a few of your comments regarding episodes past. First set of comments regarding Michael Jackson. A lot of you guys watched that episode, and I'm very glad that you did, because we should probably revisit what happened to him. This person writes, Candace, lots of respect to you for admitting that the media did a number on you regarding Michael Jackson. And as time goes on, we are all having to rethink how we've all been manipulated by the mainstream media. But I urge all of your followers to say a sincere prayer of protection for you. May God continue to work through you as you shed light on the evil. Bless you. Yes, as I always say, the prayers work and they have been keeping me safe. I very much believe that as I prod these narratives that you are certainly not allowed to prod. Even today, us talking about what's happening in France. They don't ever want to tell us what's happening in other countries because, God forbid, the awakening extends. God forbid we are suddenly talking about what's happening in France and demanding answers as we should be. Tom writes, I'm a 63-year-old white dude who grew up with Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. I've always hated innuendo, unfounded accusations, and though concerned, never believed that Michael was a pedophile. Just as I don't believe the anti-Semitism claims about you, Candace, I believe you are a based young black woman fighting for truth in media, and those two hate mongers will get nowhere with their innuendo and accusations. Yes, Rabbi Shmuley is an absolute disaster. I am not afraid of him. He's been all weekend calling me an anti-Semite, demanding that I get fired. Dude, I look at that man, first and foremost, as a pervert. I mean, advertising sex products in a sex shop owned by your daughter, and you think that because you're a rabbi, you're untouchable? What kind of a rabbi is this? Honestly, completely and utterly unholy, completely and utterly insane if you ever watch clips of him and the way that he debates by just calling people anti-Semites and smearing because he thinks that that's power. We must remove the power from these terms by recognizing that they are only used to stop us from speaking. I mean, the fact that Trudeau thing, the Emmanuel Macron story that I just shared with you, they're calling people that are looking into this anti-Semitic. I haven't seen one thing that has anything to do with Jewish people, so I don't even know how the press got there. But again, we have to stand up to these smears and be willing to take bullets, figurative bullets from these people as we all get closer to the truth. And that includes everybody, right? I'm saying black, white, Jewish, Indian, Christian, it doesn't matter what your race, religion, ethnicity is. All of us have to understand that a lot of these words are only being used to detract from truth. Lastly, a couple of comments pertaining to Erin Moriarty, the actress that had a very old photo of her published and then a newer photo of her with makeup. It looks like she's had some surgery, but we should have been more factually accurate, in my opinion. Jay Wade writes, "You're wrong on this one, Candace. You don't change that much from 19 to 29. Your nose doesn't get more skinny as you age. It actually gets bigger your whole life. Clearly work was done and has ruined herself. Everyone was right before." No, I'm not saying that she didn't have some work done, but I do think that when you present a photo of someone and there's a 10-year difference, you should state that because it allows people to edit what they're expecting. And yes, you do age. If I showed you a photo of me from 10 years ago, I would look the same, yes, but also I would look a bit different. And with women, especially if you're 19 and 29, you do lose baby fat. That's a fact. Especially photos of me in college, I had baby fat in my face and that has gone away. I do agree that her nose does look completely different. I'm not saying she's had no work done, but I think that the reaction that she got was because we thought that those two photos were within months of one another, or at least within years of each other, not within a decade. So it's just good to always aspire to be factually correct. And if you don't get it right, just go back and say, here's what I got wrong, because we are not in the business of trying to control what people think. I want you guys to actually think on your own, which is why, again, I am going to be including a link to what we discussed today. It is exceedingly long. It's the only one that I could find that was available in English. I tried to learn French over the weekend, reading into this Emmanuel Macron story. Huge, huge scandal. But yes, the link is of a genealogist that is unpacking everything, and it will take you a long time to read, but it is worth it. We must lock arms with the citizens of France in recognizing what is happening and what the severe implications are. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. But don't worry, it's only Monday, which means that we will see you tomorrow for a brand new episode.